Hello, you're back with Dave and Tim at the Single Malt Review, and I will start that again. Hello, you're back with Dave and Tim at the Single Malt Review, and something I like about this gig is when you get to respond to a viewer request. By its nature, you don't always get to just rush out and pick up any old bottle of whiskey that someone might ask for, but our regular viewer, Fred Laboche, has asked us to look at the Speyburn Bradan Orach.
Yes, indeed. 3 times, in fact. So, Here we go. You thought we'd forgotten you, but we hadn't.
No, it's waiting for the right moment to be able to
Yes, indeed.
see what we can do.
So, Speyburn, as the name might imply, a Speyside whisky.
Yes, despite them calling it Highland Single Malt.
Well, you know, that can happen. All Speysides are Highlands, as they say, just not all Highlands are Speyside. And the Gaelic on the bottle, goodness, that was a big pour, never mind, it's my cross to bear. The Bradan Orach, to say it with the proper back of the throat method, is golden salmon, I think, or salmon. Yes, golden salmon, I think, is the right way around for that one. And the idea behind this one is it is obviously a no age statement, Speyburn, and it is 100% bourbon matured. So that's the hole they're posting it into there.
Most of the Speyburn range does carry an age statement, starting at 10, I believe. But this is, being the sort of entry-level offering, which does not carry that statement. It does have a single cask type.
As for how old this one is, obviously there's something younger than 10 in it. I'd say the average age of this is probably floating somewhere around 6 to 8.
Hard to judge from the colour. This is artificially coloured. They tell you as much on the label. And at 40%, there's going to be chill filtration as well. Definitely
so. So classically presented, you'd have to say, but never mind. We'll look past that.
So Speyburn, owned by
the very fashionably named Interbev, the International Beverages something Limited. They own a smattering of sort of Southeast Asian scented companies, including the very esteemed Chang beer and some interesting spirits distilled around Bangkok, which I have never heard of, but they probably don't even leave the Asian market. But including their other things in the portfolio, they do have some Scotch whisky distilleries. They have Speyburn, and they have Anach, and Palate, and a couple of others which escape my memory at this time. But they do have a little foothold in there, which is interesting.
Anach certainly tried many fine drams.
Speyburn on the up as well. They've this is one of really a whole new range that they ginned up maybe a year or two ago now, but they were a much sleepier distillery in the past. Not a big one, only 1 million litres of alcohol per annum. They're just a dual still joint, one wash still, one spirit still, which is about as small as you can be. You can't really, unless you want to do everything in one still, which I can't recommend. 2 is what you need, and 2 is what they have. So not a big place.
But I've been going since, 1897?
1897 sounds good, yeah.
It's a good long run. Yeah.
You'd almost call that average age for distilleries in Scotland, really, them being pretty long-lived beasties.
Yeah. So, bourbon casks. We have some very to-the-point tasting notes on here. They mention green apples, honey, lemon, and floral vanilla spices.
Yeah. You could almost call it kind of aiming at the Glenfiddich 12 model, to use another much more famous, much more mainstream Speyside as a target there. So we'll see how close they come. Nice and gentle on the nose. There is certainly the lemon.
Some crystallised ginger, a lot of sweetness. But also a bit of zest, a bit of a zing.
It is quite zingy. It's sort of lemon rind zest.
Yeah.
In there. It really is quite lemon focused. I think that's where it dissociates itself a wee bit from the very established Glenfiddich 12 model.
We've had some stunning young bourbon matured Islay whiskey in recent years. So it'd be good to try something which is broadly similar but without that Islay peat.
There's a fairly fair tinge of immature malt spirit in here as well, so it's not... Well, I don't know, as I say, the average age, that's my prediction, but as for the youngest spirit that's in here, who knows? I mean, it could be really quite young, depending on what they've used.
I was getting a hint of harshness, which reminded me a little of, say, the Heelan.
Yeah, that sort of... It's difficult to describe other than calling it immature malt spirit, and then when you know when you come back around to it. Anyway, on the palate, Light-bodied.
Wow, that's
Very
really
light-bodied.
sweet. That is an outlandishly honeyed streak at the end there.
Honey the whole way through for me. Light honey as well, runny honey, sort of clover honey.
A little bit of lemon curd and some slightly sharp green apples too.
Yeah, almost a...
Really true to their tasting notes on the label, actually.
Quite reminiscent of like a lemon honey drink. If you've got a cold, you might make a hot lemon honey, and that's very, very reminiscent. It's not a complex whiskey by any means, but it is quite defined. It only really has... you can count the tasting notes on one hand, realistically, but they are very individual and very, very distinct.
Yeah, the strength and clarity of those characters is what's driving this.
The lemon is hugely distinct. Anyone could pick it out. Similarly, the honey, massive. And then the vanilla and sort of other oak flavours are sort of receding at best, really.
Yeah, there's sort of vanilla, little bits of saffron, almonds, a few other spices and nutty characters which just fade into the background over time.
So a hugely, hugely primary dram, this one, and very, very, not neutral, but very sort of bright, clean, very, very easy to approach. It would make for a pretty excellent beginner's whiskey, really. It's not anything too troublesome in here to get one's taste buds around. It would also do really, really rather well, especially as it heats up seemingly by the minute in here. I've turned the jolly air on, but it's not quite doing the trick. It would do pretty well for a couple of ice cubes as well on a hot day. I think this would make quite a good longer scotch, and it would make a few decent lighter-bodied fruity cocktails. I think wouldn't be too much of a waste.
I have to say that honeyed sweetness is probably going to be a bit much for some people. If I like my whiskey quite sweet, but in this case it's a really strong, just a pure honey, sort of syrupy sweetness, which is almost over the bound as far as what I'm going to enjoy. Yeah. So if you don't like that, and this is probably not the whiskey for you, but if you're into that...
Once you chilled it down, that would maybe recede a little bit, or become a little fresher, but I do know what you mean. This would get overbearing pretty quickly, just sipping on it neat.
Yeah.
But actually, that's all fine. That's a whiskey with an archetype, and it's certainly hit it. My problem with this one, why I didn't get it for so long until I found it on Super Duper Special, was the price difference between this and the Speyburn 10 years old, the proper age-stated, the age-stated version of Speyburn it was something like $6. And we're not talking American dollars either. We're talking New Zealand dollars, which are, I think, based on the current exchange rate, about almost half. So we're not talking a lot of money at all. We're talking sandwich money, if that. Cheap sandwich money, Atlanta sandwich, not even San Francisco sandwich. So I've lost my train of thought.
The price difference wasn't economical to go for the Bradan Orach.
The sandwich metaphor became too complicated. Derailed me.
Got lost in Sandwich Town.
I don't know why this one. It seems they should either drop the price of this or raise the price of the rest of their core range, neither of which is particularly expensive. It's just there is conspicuously less of a difference between this one and a 10. And generally, though I'm not no great crusader, like some people are against only getting age-stated whiskies, I will go for them if I can, if there's no price difference involved, because then there's that much, you're generally getting something a little bit better. But so I think who this whiskey is for regards that is people who do want something exceptionally light-bodied, or someone who needs a Speyburn that is 100% bourbon matured. If that's a particular stipulation for you for whatever reason, then I think this is the option, because once you get into the normal age-stated releases, there will be a bit of sherry cask in there around the edges, though not a great deal. Scores.
This is... before we get into the score, something, this is
give it a dash.
I'm going to try just a little water, only a small amount, because this is not strong to begin with, but this is great as an illustration of, this is showing me quite well why young whiskey, which is matured in bourbon barrels, is so popular amongst the island distilleries, like some of the examples we've tried recently. And the strength and clarity of those characters, that would be really well offset by a healthy dose of peat, which you get in things like the Distillery Le Chèque or the other ones we've tried in recent years.
Apply a layer of peat to this, and you almost got a Kalila at that point. A young Kalila, obviously.
That water has sliced through the sweetness. It's really dulled down that honey and mellowed out the rest of it. It's brought it more within to the bounds of what you'd normally expect for something like this, because the sheer intensity of those flavours is what really set this apart for me at first sip.
Yeah, definitely goes well as a longer drink. I think I would have preferred that watering vector to be an ice cube so I could cool it down as well, but yeah.
I'm definitely seeing the appeal though. This is a really good illustration of what you can do with a single cask type, even in a modestly priced, entirely accessible whiskey.
Anyway, scores before it evaporates. This one, I think, depending on who it's for, depending on who's drinking it, I think your mileage is going to vary. I think for a whiskey newcomer or someone who's just coming off blends and wanting to try a very, very non-confrontational single malt, this is probably a pretty good one to do. Similarly, if someone's having it in a sort of a long glass with a few cubes on a hot day, this probably goes well also in terms of style and price. As a single malt to be enjoyed neat on its own, I think that's fairly weak as single malts go, but just because it doesn't have a great neither breadth nor depth of flavour, it does what it does in its sort of very, very primary way. And there you go, that was the show. I hope you enjoyed it. So scores for me on this one. This one's a 78 from me. What do you think?
I'll go a little higher. This one is an 82 from me. Sure, it's got a fairly limited range of core flavours that it delivers, but those are so abundant and so clear and pronounced that it's really expressive. It doesn't have a lot to say, but it does say it says so really eloquently and very upfront. You can read the tasting notes on the label and get exactly what they're describing there. If you want to taste what a bourbon cask can do, then this is a really good illustration of it. And just bringing all those bourbon cask characters and just cracking them up and actually delivering something a little bit extra, a few surprises on top. It'll be too sweet for a lot of people, which is sad, but for someone who likes that, then, well, you're in luck.
Yeah. So there you have it. Speyburn Bradan Orach. Oh, I completely chewed that one. Bradan Orach. There you go. Said it properly the second time. There can be a bit of homework for you people at home. Learning to speak Wookiee or Gaelic, whatever you want to call it. They're not too fussy. And don't hesitate to recommend a whiskey. We will get there eventually, unless it's something ridiculous or unfindable, or something we can't get in New Zealand. Then it might take a wee bit longer, but we will try. So there you go. Slanger, we'll be right back with something that we have selected. I don't know what it is, but it will be something pretty scrubby, I'm sure. Keep safe, we'll be right back.